After lunch, I took a nap. It, yes, microwave nap. All right. The first speaker this afternoon is Paul Fransen. Paul is a very old friend of me, and I don't know how many years we know each other, but we were both involved in the arts and culture network of the area of Rotterdam we live in. And we have tried to make there over the years many changes. But one thing is sure, what Roofdhoofd said this morning. Your real enemy are the bureaucrats. And what we have faced with a number of bureaucratic rules, I mean, that was really impossible. Anyway, Paul had a great gallery in the area, and now he has an online gallery, which is really amazing to see that stuff. And he explained a little bit about that last year. But today he will help us to understand, and he's really talking from the practical side of things, what he has seen, because he has worked with many, especially visual artists. And I don't want to be very impolite, so don't start throwing books and stones or chairs at me. But you have dumb people and you have visual artists. And sometimes I do not know the difference. And that comes that there is a great lack of education when you go to art school. They don't know how to present themselves, what to learn, how to do this, how to do this. And it's a long list what you should know and don't learn. So Paul has worked with many painters and sculptors over the years, and he is speaking really with a lot of knowledge. So his background is management, so then it is interesting to see what we can learn from that point of view. You're not mad at me, huh? No. Thank you. Okay, give a warm welcome to Paul.
Okay, good afternoon. As Leen said, my name is Paul Fransen, and I will like you to tell something about education and training systems. The subtitle, it's From Alien to Superman. Yes, a lot of artists are a kind of aliens. Weird people with weird behavior. you recognize. You want some explanation? Okay, I will some. In the eye of normal people, strange things about artists. If an artist does a thing, like music, painting, dance, most of the time he's not on this world. Some of you call it trance. Strange about it, that's fully accepted by artists. If one tries to get it in trance at his work in the office, he will get fired. Another thing is that normal people stop working when they are in the 60s and will do nice things like traveling and so on. Artists, no, they don't retire. They go on till their death. That is rather weird. Okay, we understand that artists are at least different from other people. What they have in common with every other person is the fact that they also like to be successful, like Superman. But that means a double handicap, especially for those who are self-employed. As an artist, they like to do only the creative things, like dance music. And as a self-employed, to find the time and means for education and training. And above all, the normal education and training system doesn't fit with the wishes from the self-employed artist. So what can we do about it? So let's start at the beginning. A self-employed artist needs three things. We start with core competence. That is where he is really good in, like dance music, visual. And then he needs qualities. Every person has his own weaknesses and his strengths. And there is also knowledge and skills, skills and knowledge. And that's the area where you can learn and get trained in. Let's start with the core competence. This is the base of your work. For those who play guitar, it's music, of course. For the other, it's dance, etc. For an artist, it is just a lifelong addiction. To develop your core competence, there's the academy. Most of the people. Most of the academies only concentrate on the core competence. The question, how to survive in the real world, is not done. The students must only concentrate on their core competence. The last few years, you see, that's a little bit changing. Some academies tell the students that there are other aspects they should be aware of, will they survive in the real world. But education and training in those aspects, you can barely find the training program in the training program of the academy. It's possible you like to earn money with your art. Most people like to do that. So you can step through life with pleasure. But we all know only a happy few has a very good income, and a small group can live from their art on a reasonable level. But there's also a big group of artists who have to do other work beside their art. Some even must leave the art and work in full-time job elsewhere. Sad. That has to do with the other aspects which play an important role in building the existence. They are called qualities and skills. Qualities, the most difficult one. Every person has his own qualities and strengths. Some are weak, others strong. The qualities. It seems to be obvious that you exploit your strengths. But what to do with the weak qualities? Try to make it stronger, or let somebody else help you with that. But there is a problem. Of course there is. A lot of people don't know their own strengths and weaknesses. Strange, but it's true. Often they don't want to know what their weaknesses are, and they overestimate the strengths. In short, which qualities play a role in building existence? I mentioned some, the most important, like motivation, assertiveness, intuition, dare to take risks, perseverance, discipline, flexibility, work independently, decision-making, self-confidence, responsibility, creativity. So I see a lot of scaring faces in the audience. Must I be excellent in all those aspects to survive? Well, the last one should be no problem, I hope, for the most artists. For the other aspects, no. You don't have to be excellent in all the aspects. There are always some aspects that suit your personality perfectly. In some aspects, you are average, and some are just weak. So it's only a few things to look for. I've mentioned some important qualities. For each quality, there are separate courses and workshops. Unfortunately, you will not find them back in one overall education training, where you can develop all those qualities further. But that, as I said, it's not always necessary. Every person possesses qualities, and for everyone, that's on a different level. It's therefore important to know which qualities you should pay attention to. And do not expect that, with training, you will be very good at all those qualities. In that case, you really would be Superman. You can also choose to ask for other people to do certain things for you. For example, your life partner can provide additional qualities, you hope. Later more on this. And let's see for skills and knowledge. You can teach yourself knowledge and skills. But not everything will be of great interest for you. Some things are so way out of your interest zone that you like to forget them. But they are also important to survive as self-employed. Knowledge is important because it helps you to see things in perspective. It helps you with your work, etc. In this modern age, it's not necessary that you have everything in your mind if you just know where to look up things. And skills are always handy, but some doesn't interest you a bit. Others suit you well. So where I'm talking about, sum up some of the skills you need, like administration, work together, planning, the oral skills, human knowledge, cope with stress, commercial insight, financial, sales, and so on. And again, a lot of people will scare of this. But most self-employed artists don't want to hear the words administration, financial, sale. A lot of people don't like to hear that words. But those aspects are required. And so what now? What can we do about it? If you see the list of qualities, knowledge and skills, a lot of you would never want to be an independent artist. It seems that you must be a kind of Superman. But in practice, it's not so bad. Every person has good qualities and skills, and some are mediocre, but would not be a big obstacle. And there are always things you can, you don't want to do or you can do. There are 4 things you can do about it. That's ignoring, training, work together, or outsourcing. Ignore. You understand that ignoring can be dangerous. With good luck, and in a market where you have very little competition, you may be able to go well. But you still will not get the most out of your work. Training is always good. The problem is that there are no training that deals with all the mentioned aspects. If there is one, then you are likely to go to school for about 3 to 5 years, full time. And most do not have the time and money to afford this. So it therefore means that you should develop certain qualities and skills. That's okay. Then the question will raise, what can I best pick up first? So as I said before, it implies 2 things. That you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and that you have an overall view of the impact of certain qualities and skills. It's very important that you know what the impact is. In practice, both prove to be difficult. You should have a training that briefly covers all aspects and at the same time gives you insight into the aspects that are important for further development. But unfortunately, I do not know any training that does it in fullest extent. But as mentioned before by Ward and other people, you can work together. Working with others gives the group the advantage that as a group you can be strong in several qualities and skills. Ward mentioned some practical things like that you can have discount, etc. But it's always also important for sharing each other's knowledge and skills. Collaboration can find place in many different forms. You can think of a coach or a mentor. You ask someone if he wants to give you advice. That can be someone that you know well, who has a lot of experience and can advise in a good way. That's important. Often the advices are practice-oriented. There are also professional coaches, that can strengthen specific qualities and skills by asking you the right questions and giving you some good tips. As I mentioned before, you can work as a group. If you search a group of other independent artists, you can work together. Because everyone has strengths and weaknesses, jointly you can form a group that has all the qualities and skills at home, or most of them. But that is not always easy. I've learned that in practice, because it often involves different kind of people. And one is a doer, the one is a thinker, the other is a leader, etc. So only when you realize that a group can only succeed if every member is open and have respect for the qualities and skills for the others, then it could be done. Working together, but there's also outsourcing. Of course, you can also outsource certain items. What you see a lot, especially with artists, is that they outsource the administration. With a little luck, your partner does it, but often an external expert is hired for this. Another clear example of outsourcing in the artist world is the agent. That person is looking for new clients, negotiating with them, and ensuring a good reward. The disadvantage of outsourcing, it's mentioned this morning also, is that you should be able to trust the other. Not only that they are reliable, but also that they are doing the best for you. Oh, I'm sorry. If you are in a group, as mentioned before, it will be a lot easier. If it is a large group, you can even employ someone. So, in practice you will see that often a combination of ignoring, training, and collaboration and outsourcing is chosen. And overall, that works good. How to combine? You can follow this system, if you like. You know, Superman scores 100% on all aspects. It's like this. Set your own qualities, knowledge and skills, set that and subtract that. Then that will be left. Which aspects can you easy and against low cost spend outsource, and subtract that? Then you get this. And there are always some aspects that are not really necessary for success, and subtract that. And finally, you get this, the aspects you have to work on. So you don't have to be a Superman, it's only a few aspects you have to work on for most people. So let's talk about other ways of education and training. It has to do that the number of self-employed people has grown strongly in the recent years. Large companies want to be flexible and increasingly hire temporary workers. Job security has disappeared almost everywhere. It's sad. But so many self-employed, you would expect that the education system will change too. Unfortunately, that is not really the case, not yet, anyway. And that makes it difficult for many self-employed to maintain. The supply of education and training should be adjusted much more to the individual. And I think that's the difficult part for a lot of organizations. Imagine that you first do a test which shows which qualities and skills need training, and that you then only train those, like before. You would say that you get acquainted with as many aspects of business at a school where you also develop your core competence. Unfortunately, that is still not done at many schools. For example, I offer an art academy to tell the students what they are about to encounter if they have to earn their money later. They politely said that students can only engage with the creative process. Everything else just lead down. Fortunately, nowadays, some schools, like dance academies, offer certain lessons to promote yourself if you have to earn money later, but that's only one aspect. I myself think that there must be an institution that knows all aspects of self-employment and will support people, certainly for people at the beginning of the career. Maybe, this is my opinion, this should be done by the unions. They have a lot of experience and know their members the best. Finance for this should come from the government, I think. And also for the big companies, because small and medium-sized enterprises are the engine of employment. Most people are employed in small companies. But due to the large scale, large companies have clear cost advantages. This places the small entrepreneur in an adverse position. In order to correct this, the big companies should finance the training and coaching of self-employed entrepreneurs. And ultimately, that will be positive for all, because the big companies like to hire skilled people. So, in my opinion, they may pay for that. The European Committee has drafted a new skills agenda for Europe. That they like to simulate the improvement of qualities, knowledge and skills of the working people. That's a very good sign. There lies a big chance for institutions and companies to pick up the money and do something for the self-employed people. So I hope it will be done. It's not so problematic as many people think. You know which qualities, knowledge and skills are important for self-employees. And there are a lot of trainers who can help with one or more aspects. So there should be a match. It isn't there. But first there should be a test, as I said before. Most likely a more different test for each profession one. So I think there should be a kind of flexible school. And it said this morning, e-learning does a lot with this. So, as a recapitulation, what did I actually achieve with this story? Maybe you don't want to be a self-employed artist anymore. I hope not. My intention is to indicate that a good entrepreneur needs to know which qualities and skills are important. And that you know that you do not have them all. That you can achieve that by training, collaboration and outsourcing. If you pick up the right combination, it works out well. And I hope that in the near future, institutions like the unions will take the challenge and will take the self-employee to a successful career. As I already said, important is that you know which of your qualities and skills are strong and which are weak. In the workshop I give in the coming days, I hope with a group of people that they become aware of their strengths and weaknesses. So, you aliens, when we all become Superman, it will be a very dull world. So, for me, be yourself and also look for some training, collaboration and outsourcing. Thank you for your ear. Are there questions?
Okay. Are there any questions? Bart?
Well, do you expect, it's all right, I think I can shout it down now. Do you expect the authorities, now that they stop giving us money, entering in some decent kind of program to at least offer us possibilities for study and development?
But which authorities? I think if it's the government, I don't think so. I think it must be unions and companies who will pick up that kind of things and will develop new training systems.
It will become a private effort then, of course.
Yes. Yes, but there is money from the European Commission, so it could be done. But somebody has to do it. So I wonder if I think union will take up will pick it up. I hope so, at least.
Other questions? A little comment. Okay, here.
You said that it was important to maybe get in contact with the union. You mean CNV Kunstenbond, or is there something else you mean? That's the one.
Sorry?
What union? You mean CNV Kunstenbond or something else?
Like that kind
That
of
one,
unions,
okay.
yes.
And
But they also have to develop a program, eh?
okay, so
They don't have it yet, so...
what can
But,
they offer right now? Do you?
There's very little to offer.
Okay.
Well, you have to look for yourself with all kinds of different coaches, etc. But that makes it difficult now for a lot of artists.
A little comment from my side, because I've been chairman of the CNV Kunstenbond in the Netherlands for a long time. First, and that is still true in some other nations, the unions were against the self-employed, which you can understand because they will undermine the working rights of an employee. That's very logical. But unfortunately, the European Union adopted for a program called flexicurity, so the flexibilization of the workforce, still keeping social security for people who were in the process of flexibilization. And last year a research was done by the European Commission to explain the political context here a little bit. And they were shocked by the results because they had not expected that the flexibilization of labor would lead to a legion of self-employed people having no social security. So it turned out to the very negative side, and many people took advantage of that. Now, in the Dutch society, the trade unions saw this already happening about 10, 15 years ago, that this was going wrong. So FNV, that is the socialistic trade unions, and CNV, those are the Christian trade unions, decided both to organize the self-employed people. And then for the Christian trade unions, they brought all the knowledge together in ZZP Nederland. That's very important. Because in the practical way, it is not easy to defend the rights of employed people and the self-employed people. There is a clash there somewhere in the middle. So ZZP Nederland, so many people who are self-employed are member in the Netherlands of Christian Artists, and are, in the same time they're a member of ZZP Nederland, getting there all the benefits. There we have a full concentration of knowledge and trainings programs when you're self-employed. And I wish in more nations this would happen, because you desperately need that, such trainings program. So at least for the Netherlands that exists now more or less. But the same problem is happening now in many nations. You know, what is the result of self-employed people on your society? So last year we talked especially about some negative sides. And this year we want to talk a little bit what are solutions, at least for you as an artist. So most of the lectures deal with that. Any more questions to Paul? Yeah.
Actually, it's not really a question, but just something useful for people, because we've been thinking about this a lot in dance in the UK, and there's actually now some really good organisations that are connecting into the dance training schools, and they're also connecting to the companies. So if anyone wants to talk to me about that, I'm happy to talk about what I've discovered. And there's actually some good links, it's like, it's called One Dance UK, and it's an organisation that you can go to find out where can I train about this, who can I speak to about this.
Okay,
So
that's a good start.
Good point. Other things, more questions. Okay, Paul, we have for you a little present.
Yeah.
As you are a great art collector, I don't give you a piece of art, but something. This is the smell of Christian artists. So you can put it on fire, not here because we have then the fire people coming, but it smells nice and makes you remember about all us crazy people.
Okay, thank you.
Give him a big hand. Okay, where is Jill? Our Jill Ford. It's like you're from the A-team, huh?
Oh, great.
Jill.
Yes.
We will proceed with a few interviews. Yes?
Yeah.
Who do you want to see here?
I think we'll start with Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre. Rudolph. Yeah, you will get a mic.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Let's have an applause for Jean-Pierre.
Two.
We haven't really met, so do I get a kiss too before?
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. Would you like to stand up and kiss the person next to you as well? Just give you a break again. Come on, up you get. Let's go French. And we just sort ourselves out. Go on, kiss the person next to you. Let's get friendly.
See what I started now?
Even if you've got a man next to you, it's okay, guys.
Hey, enough there. Yeah. This is enough now.
There is such a thing as a holy kiss. Do you know that? A holy kiss, which is mentioned in the Bible. I think you give a holy kiss generally on the forehead. So just be thankful that I didn't get you to do forehead kissing. I got you to do cheek kissing. Well, let's carry on in an affectionate way, shall we? And hear a little bit more about Jean-Pierre Rudolph. Thank you very much for coming to the stage to share some hopefully really important aspects that will be an encouragement to people today. Can you just tell us, Jean-Pierre, where you're from and what you would consider your main art form?
Okay, my name's Jean-Pierre Rudolph, and as you can see by my accent, I'm from France, from Strasbourg in France, and I'm a musician. That's my main art form.
Main art form. But you sound Irish. What's going on here?
Well, I've been working for 30 years for my sins with an Irish guy, so...
Okay. So it's really rubbed off on your accent.
God has found his way to punish me in advance, you know.
Oh, it's just highly confusing for the rest of us, but intriguing as well.
So I've done purgatory already, so I hope I'll go directly to a cooler place.
Yeah.
Mind you, the great things happens in the hot places, usually on this earth. So
yes. And you're a man who's very well travelled, and we realised that last night by listening to your music with flavours from Turkey and from some Arabic music in there as well. Where have you been recently?
I travel mostly in the head or at home, you know, and with the internet. I actually, apart from Turkey, I never set foot on some of the Middle Eastern countries. I mean, I have friends I play with Middle Eastern friends, musicians, great musicians. But a few times I was offered to tour in some of these countries, but it never happened. It never happened. So unfortunately, so.
Okay. Well,
I see it from a distance, you know. But thanks to internet and to whatever access we have in this day and age, well. You don't always need to go there, at least to get a glimpse of what's going on in some of these countries. And so.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you're convincing as well, because I completely believe that you'd immersed yourself in Arabic culture and the nations of the world from
that's
from your
another
playing.
boy called Jason Carter. He would be the one you would be talking
That's
to.
right.
He would be around the world, and he's
Yes.
played in about 100 countries or so. So
Yes.
that's a different thing. I've played in a small 20-something countries. So
Okay.
it's a good start, but.
So when did your interest come about in sort of the musics of other cultures, really, and blending that with your own style? When did that interest begin?
Well, generally speaking, I started to get real good interest in the 70s when there was the folk movement, so I learned a lot of instruments. Irish thing was a big thing at that time, and so I liked that. And I played, as I said, I toured with an Irish guy, so for years I used that sort of genre. Irish music has a great thing, it communicates well. You can make people dance, you can make them laugh, you can make them cry, etc., etc. You can make them dream. But you can make them dream, and not in that way, Ria. Yeah, there's a lot of it involves a lot of right arm lifting sometimes.
Yeah.
But I know, but I'm a city boy basically, and I was always frustrated with Celtic music because there's not much room for improvisation in Celtic music. So I studied jazz, and I'm partly a jazz musician, and so I got into jazz. But then in jazz, even then, I find something still missing. And then when I discovered Eastern music, Middle Eastern music, I realized there's a way to combine traditional stuff with improvisation. And for me, it goes much deeper. That goes much deeper. I can express deeper things, which are more important, maybe something more introverted, but per se, but something which means more to me than just basically what is known as jazz. Even jazz is now a big thing. Anything could be jazz now. Yeah, that's the way it started. It's a progressive thing.
Yeah, and you went from there. And you've just alluded to the fact that you've done some collaboration with other musicians. But who would you say are your key collaborators? As we've been talking quite a bit about partnership and connecting with others and the importance of that. Who would you say were your key collaborators, your key musicians that you've fostered quite intentional relationships with?
Yeah, well, it's only started in this last decade or so, last 10 years maximum, because very often I had the impression that one of my problems was always to be, and I mean, Poland is one of his things. That's definitely one thing I had to deal with was self-confidence. That's really because, as Torsten was saying this morning, if you're not trained, I'm not trained as a classical musician, so no, that's gone. I can't do that. I can't be a classical musician, but maybe have something still to bring if there's something in me to bring. So it took me years to feel self-confident enough to let something out. So I was always working as a partner of some other people. Okay. So it's only in this last decade that I took the courage maybe to start to do things. And yeah, one good friend of mine, I don't see him much these days, but I worked intensely with a Syrian guy, Hassan Abdelrahman. Again, not the best musician, but he has a deep artist. He's a man, he has a song in him, and that's beautiful. I love to work with him. And this last year, I've had a chance to work with a percussion player who teaches. So the great thing, if we only done one concert so far, but we practiced, we rehearsed the whole year. Every Tuesday afternoon, we went together. Amazing. So that means you get time to get a repertoire together, to work it out, and we're kind of on the same level, technically, skill-wise. And then once you learn it, once you know it, you get to, and then you play music with it, then you start to play, and this is beautiful. And when we play, the great thing is even if one makes a mistake, it doesn't matter, the other one is always there too. We know the thing, we've known it so well, we know what we want to say with that music, we know where we want to go to, and so that... These, I would say, in this last few years have been two important people for me.
Okay, that's great. And what would you say have been some of your biggest challenges on your journey? What are the hurdles really that you've had to get over and challenges that you've had to face?
Well, the one thing was, I just mentioned it, is about self-confidence, and not every time when I worked with the Irish guy, there was times I said, okay, now it's time you do something on your own. And then every time there was something like we had a new CD to do or a new recording or something, and that takes so much energy. Then after that, I didn't. So that took me a while. And also, I'm a slow person. I'm a contemplative person. That's another word to say I'm a lazy boy. But it's not. I'm lazy, but to put it in other words, people say waste of time. I don't waste time. I take my time. That's different. You're not going to live any longer, if you rush. So that was a first big challenge, which, and finally when I started to get something done, like I done my first solo album after working with so many other people when I was 46.
Okay.
And that was a big challenge because I was not prepared for the practical things, for anything. Like it was, for me, it was a great thing to hear Alexandra this morning because anything she was talking is exactly everything I never cared about, you know.
Okay.
And she had a nice way to take you by the hand and show you.
Yeah.
So it was very,
Yeah.
it was very great. And
Yeah. That's quite interesting because another question that I wanted to ask you is how has sort of any formal training that you have received impacted you and what do you feel that you've taken from the more formal training that you've had?
Well, one of the biggest thing probably with formal training, which I got quite late. I entered the conservatory, musical conservatoire in France in Strasbourg when I was 30, and now normally you're out. That's the limit of age. So I was able to. So I can tell you, whatever the teacher says, you take it in because this is your last chance to have something at that level.
Okay.
I would say one of the biggest thing I've learned of that is to be more articulated, to be more. To get a better knowledge of what you're actually doing, and also to be able then to pass it on to somebody else, like teaching and workshops and things like that.
Okay.
That's been an important thing.
And that you use that quite important word, articulating kind of what you do, because it isn't just obviously for those you're going to teach, but when you're actually trying to promote what you do, it's really helpful and important, isn't it, to be able to articulate that to others who perhaps are not musicians, but people who would promote your work, who perhaps have you do a concert there, that sense of articulating well what it is you really do, I think is probably quite an important part of the life of an artist and musician.
Yeah, and consequently being more articulated, I've learned also then the matter of communication. The kind of music I use a lot, like this more Arabic or Middle Eastern stuff. There's a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not used to that." I would say, "No, I'm not interested in having that." So the idea is when you get there again, I would also try to. I would speak a lot in between the tunes, explain again, as I say, taking people by the hand, explaining some scales, making people comfortable, and being able to realize what people don't understand, and finding a way to give keys to understand what you're doing, and that's important things for me.
Thank you. Well, there's definitely a richness that really comes through with your music, and I really feel transported to another place when I hear you play. It's really amazing, and so thank you for that. But just finally, I just wondered if there is, again, a takeaway that you would just give to people who are sitting here listening, perhaps, you know, because obviously you came to your music career slightly later in life, but if there was one thing that you would like to pass on today, what would that be?
That's different from person to person. Actually, I would say what I would not pass on. I have to see if there's a back door I can rush out. Ward this morning has put it in a more subtle way, in a direct but more subtle way. But there's one thing definitely. I don't know who you are if I don't know you personally. So to give you all the thing, work hard, be patient, blah, 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 and so on. Of course, it's all that. Learning the tough way, that's important. But there's one thing, because this is a Christian gathering, to be honest, it's okay. It sounds a bit provocative, but I would never tell you pray and ask God to show you what He wants for you in your life. Ward was putting it in a nicer way, saying God has already done His work. It's there. Use the skills, use what you have, instead of being like a puppet. Say, God, what do you want to? Oh, right. Could you do this? No, I mean we have the skills in us. That's the first thing. It doesn't mean you have to cut your relationship with a. God, he, she, or it, but it's you have something and you use it, because you might fool yourself. You might take some little signs. You might take little signs. We prayed hard. I mean, I've heard the most rubbish people saying, "Well, we want to get in the church. We really got together. All you need to say is the few magic words." No, but we really prayed. As long as it's a group of people, we prayed together very hard, and God showed us that, this, and that. So, what can you say against that? Because God showed you. There's nothing you can say. And I mean, I cannot imagine what can you do. I cannot imagine what can you. How can God use you, apart from your own ego to be there? At least admit it. You want to make it. Just go and bloody make it if you can do that. Excuse my French, but But I mean, just go and be honest. Say, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying. I'm not into making big thing. I'm happy to play for 20, 30 people in a living room or something. That's more my thing. Or in an art gallery. I've played big festival. I played for 20,000, and I played for 2. And my thing would be more in between, towards the 2 than towards the 20,000. But I mean, we have to be honest, and because you ask God to do something, sometimes you misinterpret something. And then when it doesn't work after 2 years or after 2 months, you say, oh, maybe I wasn't listening enough. But no, maybe you just went wrong, and you have the right to go wrong and start again. And just keep going on. And for this word has been used first. Well, Lean said thankful, and Alexandra said very often gratefulness. I mean, for me, gratefulness, this is a great thing. First, if you're grateful for what you have, well, that helps you. The rest will open up. It's instead of asking God, what is it now? What's the next step? That's maybe something I would.
Thank you.
So you're not kicking me out, but
often referred to as an attitude of gratitude. Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for being really honest there. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think we probably would all say that it requires wisdom and discernment, and we hold a number of things in tension, don't we, as artists and performers and worshippers as well, because that's what we are. But before you leave the stage, I just want to give people the opportunity, perhaps because you've raised something quite interesting there, if there are any questions that you would like to ask Jean-Pierre before we have our next guest. Yes, okay.
Jean-Pierre, when you pray our Heavenly Father, do you pray our Heavenly Mother or Sister?
Yeah. Well, I know that would come. But the thing is, we have an image like for kids. You need to have a representation. I don't see God as a man. I'm sorry. A father is a feeling you have. I mean, God speaks to me mostly in silence by nothing, and that's enough for me sometimes. Silence is an important thing because I'm not waiting for voices to. I've never heard a voice in my life, but I've had some feeling.
I'm just asking, how would you pray the Heavenly Father?
But there's a thing called liturgy and things like that. I'm into liturgy. I respect that because liturgy and therefore saying the Our Father is for me it's a sign. When you do that, when you do things, you carry on something that people have done that millions and millions of people have. I hope that people have carried on for centuries. That you put your hope and you say the same words, and it's great to have words. And if the figure of an image of a father is important, speaks to people, great. But then what you say when you say Our Heavenly, when you say to somebody, God is like a father, and the guy and the kid has been raped by her father. I'm sorry to give a shocking example. So you might need a different image to use. So I don't think it's so important to have God as a man, and I mean, you old girls should be protesting that God the man, there's the Son, and there's the Holy Ghost. It's all he. He-ha.
Okay, some theological thoughts there. Any other questions? Any other questions for Jean-Pierre? There'll probably be questions in the bar later. You've opened up a can of worms. So, any other questions? Well, can we just say thank you ever so much for sharing? We really appreciate all that you've said today, and we wish you well, and thank you very much. Thank you. Well, moving from the musical side of things, I'd like to invite our graffiti artists, Arend, up to the stage and, take another tack. If you feel you need to stand for a moment, please do. If you don't, that's fine. If you want to go and kiss someone, please do. We just get ourselves settled. Well, thank you. So we had the pleasure of meeting you last night. But just for the sake of perhaps one or two people who were not here and who got stuck in traffic, can you just say who you are and your art form, please, before we start?
Heb ik geluid? Well, okay. My name is Arend Maatkamp. I'm from Rotterdam. I'm a graffiti artist, mainly. At least that's what I see as my main art form. But I do a lot of design work, furniture design. Print, web, whatever.
Okay.
Mostly visual. So.
Mainly visual, yeah, okay. And I think those of us who met you last year know that you do have quite a powerful testimony of actually how you got into graffiti art. Is that right? And is there any aspect of that you'd be willing to share? As part of your journey of how you got to where you are, really?
Ooh.
Is that a difficult question?
I'm more worried about the time.
Okay, well, let's see. It's all right, we've got 10 minutes. So we can focus on that, or we can focus a little bit more on another dimension, if you'd like to give some advice.
So how it started, I'm raised in a Christian family with a very artistic bunch. Almost everybody is creative in my family. But my mother got sick when I was 15. She died when I was 18. I ended up doing drugs, and a lot of it. And because I got my brains with me, I started selling it as well.
Okay.
Because that's a good way to finance your
habits.
habits. And God really started speaking to me through dreams and tackled some real deep philosophical issues for me, which is a long story. But after a while, he really made me stop painting illegally, because I was living at night. Graffiti was my religion, basically. Within a very short period after making that decision to start living in the day, I ended up with a collective of Christian graffiti artists, and that's been a blast. It's absolutely amazing, and they're from it's Africa, United States, Canada, different countries in Europe, and that's amazing.
So that, again, that theme of collaboration and partnership is part of your journey and part of your story. Yeah. There is something that I would like to just ask you, and that is graffiti. People's kind of reaction to graffiti art is quite varied, and you raised that last night, saying, not everybody approves of this art form. There's that element, and yet graffiti art is often can be considered a voice for the voiceless, couldn't it? Do you feel that it brings? Do you feel that not only you have a personal voice, but through it you can bring out something that would be important to people that could just not be said otherwise, or that you can represent a group of people through this art form?
Yeah, I think that's a hard question, but the simple answer would be yes. But I think an art form always shows the heart of the society that it's in. And with graffiti, it started in the 80s with being a voice for the voiceless in some sense. But nowadays, it's very self-centered. It's individualism in its purest form, in a sense. I write my name on everything like it's mine. And of course, you see some artists like a Banksy, but that's one guy who really engages the public. But
Are there ways that you feel that you'd like to engage people further, or challenges that you've set for yourself, perhaps in your art form?
Well, I like to engage the graffiti scene, so that's a whole thing in itself. So I'm mainly focused on my fellow graffiti artists, and being different in that place. There's not a lot of Christians in that area, so and that's where you feel called to be. And what would you say are some of the challenges in that? Because you're obviously mixing with a range of people from perhaps quite broken backgrounds who are involved in graffiti art as well, or a real kind of cross section of people. What are some of the challenges for you in those sort of relationships? I realise I'm going off script here and asking you some difficult things, but you're doing great. Trying to stay down to earth, I guess.
Yeah.
Because and don't judge people, because there is a lot of crazy stories behind all those people, and yeah, some people I encounter. Yeah, there was one guy in Rotterdam that I used to really be annoyed by his demeanor within the scene, and later on I heard that at age like 5 or 6, his parents were both murdered, and he grew up on the street.
Yeah.
You don't expect stuff like that to happen in Western countries that much, but don't judge and hear people out.
Okay. And is there a country that you've particularly felt outside of your own home country? Is there a place that you felt a real affinity with, that you felt like, I really did enjoy my trip to Africa or to wherever you've been? And what was it there that you found kind of perhaps inspired your work further?
Nah.
You haven't got a
Not
favourite?
really.
You haven't got a favourite one?
I don't know. Yeah. I love Switzerland. They have mountains, and we don't have those.
Yeah, okay. And so that's inspired some of your work as well, yeah?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to do mountains of work, but...
Yeah. Well, there were mountains on that... was there a mountain on that CD cover? No, it was a road, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a road.
That was mainly a road last night, yeah. So let's just talk about formal training then. How has formal training played a part in your life as an artist? And what do you feel that you've got from your formal training?
Well, that's a tough one. Because I did finish my elementary school, but that's about it.
Okay.
I went to the art school in Rotterdam for a while, but just, I don't know, I'm an anarchist by birth, I guess. And that's very hard. The school's never, it's always either too slow or not applicable or... So, but I did learn a lot in school, and I did studies with the woodworking, furniture design. But again, I didn't get a diploma because I didn't stick to the script. So that's
okay. You're going off script all the time, aren't you? I'm going off script today with you as well. So it's the story of your life.
Yep.
So let's think about future then. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you might find yourself involved with in this next coming year, or the goals that you have for the next few years? Because that's always good for people to hear.
It's been an interesting morning because I just what is it? Play by ear.
Right.
And I live quite intuitively, and I do want to do certain things. I'm working on a series of the whole alphabet. Some people might have seen it, but and I want to release those on T-shirts. So to sort of make money with graffiti in that sense as well. But on websites like Spreadshirt, but like they do all the printing and stuff. So I only give them the design, and I like to put some work into that, so that frees time up elsewhere.
Okay. And it's really good to see how your work as a graffiti artist is diversifying into other areas. I think that came across last night, seeing the CD covers and just seeing how you were able to lend your skill set in other ways. I think that was really encouraging for people. And obviously it's an art form that I think people really relate to these days, particularly the younger population. So it's wonderful to see it being used in other ways. So let's just come to takeaway. If you had to say anything to anyone here who's perhaps a visual artist or a graffiti artist, have we got any graffiti artists in the room? We haven't got graffiti artists, but we've got visual artists in the room, haven't we? Who's a visual artist? Yay! Okay. So if you had to say anything to these guys, what would you pass on at this point in terms of your experience to date?
For me it helped a lot to reflect, step back, take some time off.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cliche maybe, but it helped me. It helped me a lot. So that's,
the importance of space.
Yeah. The
importance of reflection.
And I live a extremely busy life with sometimes 80 hours of work a week, and people always ask me how do I maintain, but I always take extra time to travel so I can encounter people wherever I go, or take that little bit of time that I have and just chill out with my family. Balance.
Work-life balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Although my balance is very weird.
Okay. Well, maybe you can reflect on that this week.
Yeah, we'll see.
As you spend time here, because I think it's a challenge for us all, isn't it, in a busy world. But well, thank you for your insights. Does anyone have any questions for Aaron before he leaves the stage? Any thoughts, questions that you think I'd like to know a bit more?
No.
They're all thinking deeply. It is post lunchtime. I know everyone gets sleepy. So, oh, we have one question here, Alison.
Is it easy to get access to walls? When I authorized access to walls, is it easy to do that?
Yeah, I think especially the Netherlands has a very open attitude towards art in general, I guess. So, and yeah, in Rotterdam, where I live now, they're working on a project for every neighborhood to have free space to paint. So, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions while I've got the mic? Oh, there's one over here. Thank you.
Your discipline is very much associated with rebellion, anti-society. Are you worried about it becoming so legitimized? I mean, you know, it's about anger, and you're so cool and calm. That worries me. I'm being sold something here. And I'm just curious about how you cope with that, because quite frankly, if you're not rebelling and breaking the rules and finding the spaces that you're not supposed to do, and tagging away with, I don't know, maybe with one of your mates hanging you over a parapet by your heels while you spray away. I mean, you're obviously becoming, if you like, institutionalized and corporate, and the whole thing. You know, if you said to me that you have done a deal with a font house, did you say you were doing that? You're designing some alphabets?
Come again?
Fonts. Are you designing an alphabet? Are you?
Oh yeah.
You're working. So you're already coming in from the cold.
Well, yeah. That's a whole lot of different things in one.
Well, no, it's the fact that the discipline is always going to be about anti-society, about, you know, marks.
Yeah.
Marks made in a certain way on a particular surface.
But within that, because I'm a Christian, I'm the rebellious guy within that group again.
So the rebellious Christian, what's the difference?
Huh?
A rebellious Christian is still a rebel.
Well, in a lot of ways, Jesus was a rebel as well.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
like-
right. I'll leave it to that.
Huh?
You can prod him later with all those questions. They're too difficult to answer all at once. Aaron, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's really great. Bless you. Thank you. Well, just before we have a cup of tea, we've got time for one more. And I'd really like to welcome to the stage Klaus-André Eickhoff. Let's give him a hand. Oh, welcome, Klaus. It's great to see you.
Thanks. Hi.
And you've been a Christian artist for quite a number of years now, haven't you? How many times have you been? Have you worked it out?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
It's 17 years ago that I was here for the first time, but I missed 3 or 4 times, so it's quite a bit, yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's great to have you here. Thank you. Thank you so much. Could you just perhaps tell everybody where you're from and what your main art form is, how you describe yourself as an artist?
I'm from Germany. I lived in Austria for 20 years, though, but I'm back in Germany for another 17 years now. I'm a singer-songwriter, playing the piano and singing German songs, my own German songs. Okay. And that's my main profession.
Okay, so let's start in a slightly different place from where we have with everyone else and just say perhaps what you're currently doing now. What projects are you working on? Is there something that you want to tell people about that you're working on as well?
I'm touring with a project which I wrote last year, and as most of you know, it's a big Martin Luther year,
Yeah.
this year, 500 years of Reformation. And I wrote a program about Martin Luther
Fantastic.
with texts and songs.
Yeah.
And I'm touring with that right now. And it's great fun because it seems that it's really a big theme, even bigger as I thought. I was almost not doing it because I thought all the musicians and other artists will now do something with Martin Luther. And I thought, yeah, but still I want to do it my way.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I did because I'm really touring a lot and having fun doing this and also having experiences like playing in Catholic churches who invited me with that program.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see that we're not separated in the main topics, but we really have topics that bring us together. And
Wonderful.
there's no Catholic Christian who would say, I don't really believe in this grace thing,
Yeah.
but it's really nice to see that we have big topics that really make us a big family. And those are great
Fantastic.
experiences.
So it's kind of building bridges, perhaps, in some ways, and maybe, yeah, helping you realise that perhaps there isn't such a big divide after all. Are you going to be performing any of those songs for us this week at
Tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. What do you just tell us? Give us a little insight into what you're performing tonight,
Just singing 3 songs out of my program. Of course, it's all in German, so I would like to say a little bit in between and try it with my English, but then hopefully the Dutch people, know to take my German songs, and all the others I hope you can still enjoy. For at least I'm playing with band tonight, which is exciting for me because I normally don't.
Okay.
It's going to be fun, I hope. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we will really look forward to that. So you've had quite a long creative journey then of 17 years, you said. Is that right? About 17 in total from when you began. And where did you do your formal training and what did your formal training look like?
I went to Singer-Songwriter University.
Okay. That was your formal training. With who? With who?
Well, there is no education for really being a singer-songwriter. So I actually wanted to become a journalist, a sports reporter actually. And that didn't really work out, but I studied communications and the music thing, the singer-songwriter thing really was a hobby for many years.
Yes, yeah.
And at the end of my 20s, I think, or oh no, that makes you know how old I am. So sometime in my life, I just decided to turn my hobby into my profession.
Okay.
After university, I worked for almost 2 years in a more or less normal job. And that made me have a little bit of money to survive 1 year without working. And I took this 1 year as an experiment if I could survive as a singer-songwriter. And that's where it all started.
And it just grew from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so lessons along the way then. What are the things that you have learned that you think, yeah, that was those things were quite key in my journey, the important things that you had to perhaps put into place along the way? I know I'm going off script with you as well. Sorry about that.
Well, keep on, well, it sounds really simple, but keep on following your dream and keep on really doing what's really you. I mean, we've heard this on stage for several times. It's really true. I have, once in a while, people came up to me and told me if you only needed to change some small things, and you would be so much more successful.
Okay.
For example, in the Christian world, just a couple of more missionary statement songs and just a little bit more Jesus, and make the audience sing along with you. And that's great if it's for you, but I never felt like that I would be that kind of person. I rather sang about my doubts and my fights with God.
Okay.
And so this wasn't really a temptation because I really never wanted to. Sometimes there are situations where you think, well, if I did, it might work out more easy, and you would have maybe more concerts, and the typical or specific kinds of churches would invite you also. But at the end, I really try to stick with what I feel and think and how my development is, and I think that's really an important thing. And this is not a contradiction to having a master plan or a marketing plan. It can fit together, but I think it's also very, very individual. So there are different ways to do it. I would just say really stick with your core competence, and it's easy enough to lose that.
Yeah. Well, there are also many distractions usually, aren't there, along the way? So yeah, understanding what is core to you and perhaps integral to who you are is a key thing. What would you say have been the joys of your journey? What are the things that you've just really enjoyed and have been your mountaintop experiences, your highs?
Sometimes the lack of my commercial success is is compensated by positive feedback of good friends and also colleagues who I think are great. And Christian Artist really has been a place like this. By my first time 17 years ago, I was even more nervous than I am now. And it was such a pleasure to have people coming to you and saying, the whole package, you have it, and just do it. It was my very first start of trying to be a profession. And when you hear on stage and you're not sure, can I even call myself a professional musician or things like this? So encouragement from other people was really important. Although it's very individualistic what I am doing, and my style is also, I think, not comparable with a couple of other normal commercial stuff. So. But feedback has always been very important. Was that the answer to a question? I don't remember. But
it's a good answer. We were talking about sort of joys, and I guess that's really kind of connecting with the joy of having others alongside you, and those encouragements and feedback being very important and lifting you, I guess, in the midst of where you can feel a little bit alone, perhaps, in a solo career.
I had, for example, a colleague of mine who's really into the Christian scene, even more than me in Germany. He came up to me a few years ago and asked me if we could do a program together. And Thorsten, me and him, we had a first tour last year, and he really fills the churches and for 80%, and I only fill them for 20%, but together we had 100%.
Fantastic!
But it was so nice that I'm totally not against people who sing along with the audience and have thoughts about their faith and so. But it was a very nice ping pong match because I was more singing and talking about my doubts. How can it be? And he was more confirming faith and belief, and it all fit together. And it was great, just a great joy to be on tour and feel that it belongs together. It's no contradiction. Faith and doubts belong together anyway. So
it's good to have them in the mix together, not just one strand. And do you feel that you enjoy? Is there a particular kind of audience that you enjoy performing to the most? I mean, do you find yourself in more the marketplace kind of situation, or do you find yourself more performing in Christian context? Because it sounds like you do both, but I don't know if one sits more comfortably with you than the other.
I like I like it all. It's more the churches now, and even with Martin Luther topic. But I also like it when it's at the edge, when people really, people who invite me for concerts, really don't do it for their own church congregation, but really open the doors and just make it possible that people find out that we're normal people and have normal doubts. And doubts, and talking about doubts, opens so many windows and doors for believers, for non-believers, because everybody once in a while comes to a point where he does not understand how this could happen in his life or in her life, and how does it fit together with the God I always thought was only the loving God and guiding God, and things like this. And it's just honest and authentic, I hope, to talk about it and to open those possibilities to
Yes.
communicate about things like this.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you. And you've talked about the importance of being authentic. You've talked about the importance of encouragement, and we've also just heard as well what the difference of collaboration can make. If you had anything for people to take away, or you had a piece of advice for perhaps people who are considering a similar journey to you, perhaps solo performer, singer, songwriter, what would you advise at this point?
Probably nothing new is coming out right now. I'm really looking and searching for the things that you really want to do.
Yes.
Try to keep really honest with the things you write.
Yes.
Because it's quite a big, not challenge, but temptation within churches. Because we have a message, and we do have it, but it really has to be your message and not the message you think that people might want to hear, or the preachers and pastors want to hear for their congregation. It really has to be what you can tell. And it's hard enough.
Yeah.
And it sounds quite simple, but it's hard enough to really keep honest here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your heart. That's really great. Give him a hand of encouragement. So, thank you. Well, we do have time for a couple of questions. So, does anyone have a question for Klaus on anything that he shared, or anything that you're fascinated by? Okay, we have somebody over here. Okay, let's run to the back.
I speak French because my English is not. Voilà. Ok. Merci, le musicien. Je suis content pour ton honnêteté. C'est très honnête.
Okay, I'm very happy that you're so honest with us.
Des hommes comme toi sont des hommes de valeur.
Men like you are men of great value.
J'ai un seul problème.
I have one little problem.
With you.
With you. Okay.
Je crois, quand je t'écoute parler,
When I listen to you,
j'ai l'impression que tu t'appuies beaucoup sur toi-même.
I have the impression you rely on yourself. Rely on yourself. Yeah.
C'est vrai que la musique, c'est l'expression de nos sentiments, de nos émotions.
It's true that music is the expression of our proper feelings, of our own feelings and our emotions.
Mais à mon avis personnel,
But in my opinion,
lorsqu'on est chrétien,
when we're a Christian.
en fait, je veux juste être honnête comme toi. Hein?
I want to be as honest as you are. Okay?
Donc, il ne faut pas plus gêner avec mes propos.
Not judging or anything.
Je pense qu'il faut savoir quelle est la direction dans laquelle on doit situer notre musique par rapport à notre foi.
So we have to choose which direction we give to our music according to our faith.
Parce que tout ce qui se fait dans le monde est quelque part lié à la foi de chacun.
Because what you're doing is related to your faith.
Et moi, je crois qu'il est important d'avoir une identité musicale. Mais quand je t'écoute parler, j'ai l'impression que on ne sait pas. Je ne sais pas comment te suivre.
Okay, I don't know how to understand what you're saying, because I think it's important to have a musical identity.
Et ma question,
and my question would be,
c'est quelle est la vocation de ta musique?
What's your, how do you say, vocation? Yeah, your calling. And what's your calling?
Le but.
Your aim, your objective with your music. What do you want to?
Est-ce que c'est juste pour te faire plaisir, pour exprimer qui tu es, ou est-ce que tu veux amener les gens qui t'écoutent à suivre une direction?
Okay, is it only for yourself, or do you want people to show a certain direction to the people?
Parce que quand tu dis il faut être soi-même, pour moi c'est un peu égoïste.
it looks a bit selfish to say to be yourself.
Je pense qu'en musique, il y a le partage de ceux qui nous écoutent aussi.
Because music is also sharing.
Et nous devons savoir que lorsque les gens nous écoutent, nous les amenons quelque part.
So when people listen to us, we take them with us somewhere, and just know where you want to take them.
Et il y a une séduction aussi de penser trop à nous-mêmes.
And you might be tempted to think more about yourself.
Moi, je préférerais une musique qui pense à Dieu.
I prefer music that thinks not about yourself, but about
Et la pensée de Dieu, la parole de Dieu est notre direction. Je pose d'abord ma question.
Okay, now, can you repeat that last part?
Je dis que moi, personnellement, j'aimerais bien qu'il m'explique quel est le but de sa musique.
Okay, just explain what's the aim of your music. It was where you want.
Merci.
Thank you for this feedback. My vocation, I really believe in it. My vocation is being myself and continuing being myself and discovering who I am. And this is a lifelong process. And I don't consider myself in a way that we know this kind of profession as a missionary, as a music missionary. I think that I am actually, but in a different way as we normally might fill this word of being a missionary. So I think my vocation is the same vocation as you have in general, which is doing that what's really on my heart and what I also think God gave me in my heart. And I'm really with Jean-Pierre in this case. It's there already. And I love this freedom, and I live this freedom to being able to express what really is on my heart, and not to move away from it and see what maybe would fit for somebody else. And the great thing is, the wonderful thing is that people come up and see themselves in the doubts that I'm expressing. And it's so wonderful. It's a win-win-win situation, because I can express myself, they see themselves, and then we can together think on and move on by talking about our questions of life. I hope it was clear enough, but that's more or less what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Klaus. Well, time has got the better of us, but I'm sure people will have things that they would love to ask you about, and I expect if you're available in the bar later and open to some more questions. But
sure am.
Thank you for sharing your heart and your ministry. Thank you. Okay, over to Lee.
In the Christian artist seminars of the 80s, that's a long way back, we dealt with the question that Bernard Sisa has been raising. And he's totally right, he is raising that question, no doubt about that. So on the Christian Artist Seminar website is an archive, it's called Themes. And there you can find the conclusions of every year of Christian artists. And then the themes of the 80s have dealt with this dilemma. What is your calling? And should I only sing songs about God and Jesus and love and forgiveness? Or am I an artist? And am I totally free to fulfill God's calling on my life, to bring my gift to fullness, so that it will shine? Well, it seems a contradiction, but it's not. They are going hand in hand. So finally, in the 80s, we decided, if you follow God's call and develop your talent, you can be a kind of musical missionary, or you can be an artist in any part of this world and do what is right and good and will be uplifting and a blessing. Yeah? But I do understand. He's from Senegal, and there they face the problems we have dealt with within the churches and theology in the 60s and 70s of last century. So for him, it's important, which I understand. So we stand with him and will encourage him for the great work he is doing in Senegal. Then our next blessing is coffee, and please be back in 20 minutes. Thank you.